Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We encourage you to follow us out on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking us out on social media. And as always, set a spot on your dial in your car, your radio. You will hear us anywhere the Beltway travels, and certainly up to Bel Air and down towards Severna Park and out toward Westminster, and certainly in Dundalk and Towson and all around downtown as well at AM 1570. 26 years into doing this, we are about to move into a new year. Luke Jones is he's struggling a little bit with his voice. It's coming together. He feels better than he sounds. And I waited through the weekend. I waited through all the Ravens nonsense and Browns game on Saturday and all that to just take a timeout from all the football conversation, all the purple madness. I have my Curio Wellness orange Baltimore shirt on. And we're going to talk free agents. We're going to talk money. We're going to maybe this will be another little letter to Mr. Rubenstein or to Mike Elias or to Katie Griggs. But the baseball gods were awakened. And Luke, you and I, full disclosure, let's go full shoot here. I'll do a little backstage, kitchen chatter. You and I always have to figure when we're going to do these conversations about baseball before a weekend, after a weekend, before Christmas, after Christmas. And I even said to you, especially on a day when the Ravens play on Christmas Day, on a Wednesday, we get up early on Thursday and work. I said, we could talk some baseball, but I have a feeling that something will happen before Monday. Let's just wait the weekend before we talk because the Orioles might sign somebody or they might not. If I were a betting man, and you could bet on anything, ask Big Papi, I would have bet against them signing anybody. And I'm beginning to get the Confederate money feelings about what this is. And I don't need them to spend stupid money. I mean, come on, man. We've been at this a long time. But at some point, you have to have a number one starter. They went and found one last year that maybe they could or couldn't sign. And I'm sure I have a feeling I've seen your social media that maybe I know where you're headed with this or where people are with this, that if Corbin Burnes was unsignable, but the fans thought they could sign him and they didn't.
Well, I mean, the fans think a lot of things. You can't go off of what the fans always go off of what the fans want to do. Look, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try to act like I ever thought Corbin Burnes being re-signed was the end all be all. You can probably go back and find conversations going all the way back to May or June, Nestor, where I expressed reservations about just signing any pitcher to that kind of contract, right? We know the history of that. They're littered with moves that look really good for maybe a year or two. In the case of Jacob deGrom going to the Rangers, didn't even get that far. But
exciting the day you signed, disappointing in the retrospective.
Sure.
Especially for old guys like you and me. You already gave me the get off my lawn moment on J.J. Watt on Christmas. When you've been around this long, I go back to Matt Young. Nobody remembers him, but that was the original sunk money of the Seattle Mariners 30 years ago. So I get it. And we all went through Chris Davis. So in the modern era, we get it. But there is a point where you better replace those innings. That's where that's where the grown up of me is,
No question. I hear you. And that's where I am at this point. And look, the sense I got throughout this was that they were wanting to re-sign him, right? I mean, I don't think this was make a half-assed offer to make it look like you tried, but knowing you're never going to get him. I don't think it was that. At least entirely, right?
Well, we're used to that here, though. I mean,
no question.
Full disclosure, Mr. Rubenstein and the Whistler and Katie Griggs, who none of them know their arm from their elbow about us, this place, our city. They're never going to know. So they should really want to listen to people like me, and you, and people that have been around it. There is a point where the disappointments of the past are brought with the fan base. And the fan base is not insignificant. They are the customers. They're the ones who you are asking to fund a $210 million pitcher, as well as a $400 million shortstop. He'll be a third baseman by the end as well, and Gunnar Henderson. So whatever you sign these guys for, 7, 8, 10-year deals, 15-year deals, Juan Soto. I can sit here and foam at the mouth and be a fan. I can be a journalist. I can be a cheapskate. I can be a union guy. I can play the Boris role. I can play the Kurt Schilling role. I can play any of that because I've heard it all my life. At some point, you haven't won a World Series. You haven't been in a World Series since 1983. It's 2025. You're a new owner. You put yourself out in front of this. You talk about being money bags and all of that. Why don't you, if Corbin Burnes could be lured, lure him, or move on. And I'm not
Right.
freaked out about Corbin Burnes, and I'll even buy. And again, they banned their broadcaster 15 months ago, and they promoted the guy to run the network who did it. But all that being said, the information that comes out after this, where they get Bob Nightingale to tweet that the Orioles were in, there was an AL East team, might have been the Blue Jays, in, and then John Heyman's going to. So, I mean, it's the same five people. And no offense, I love Ken Rosenthal. I grew up with him. They all get used in the way Peter King got used on the football beat to sell some story to a fan base that may or may not be true. But in the end, they don't have a number one starter right now. That I'll keep going back to that. You could put all of that and the baseball conversation. It always makes me shake my head because, like, I can't believe anything Mike Elias tells me. I don't even have press pass. You know what I mean? Like, they won't even answer my questions. How do they expect me to vouch for their integrity on information after a disappointment of whatever kind there is, including one run in 2 games in a playoff scenario? But nonetheless, for me, just if you're going to be honest all the time. If you're going to be forthcoming, give an honest man a press credential. I don't have the ability to ask. So I am by my nature with any of them, skeptical. I have every reason in the world to be skeptical. Every Oriole fan should be skeptical of anything in an organization led by Greg Bader and that has lost for 40 years, that has underperformed by any measurement. By any measurement, this has been an underperforming entity. And now that there is new leadership, new ownership, to have the same old tired, well, Bob Nightingale said we tried hard. Dude, how about you guys just front up and be good citizens and figure out what the strategy is and tell us what the strategy is, so we're not all fighting amongst ourselves on Christmas weekend about a billionaire's money and whether we could afford it or not, or what Corbin Burnes really wanted for his family in Arizona, which is a nice way of saying you're a bridesmaid. At some point, somebody's got to take the ball on opening day, and they need that kind of performance. Doesn't have to be now. They didn't get Burnes until January. And to your point, we now move into the, well, if you want a number one starter, you better start thinking about giving up Holiday or like a whatever to get a Scooble or to get a whatever, because it's like quarterbacks, and we spent an hour talking about that. It's just really hard to do to get great pitching. And it's really expensive, and it's very fleeting in all of sports because of the injuries in the shoulders. It can be fool's gold. And I understand that. You and I understand that more than anybody. But what's the plan for this year? Because it's not that, and it never was going to be that, apparently.
Well, I mean, that's the big question right now. And look, you know me, Nestor. I'm especially in a sport like baseball. There's no equivalent to a franchise quarterback in baseball. Every batter has to wait their turn to bat, right? You can't bat 20 times in a game in the way
you're
that
only 11% of the thing, whether you want to be or not, right?
Even when you're a starting pitcher, I mean, you go once every 5 days, and that's even the very best, right? I mean, the very best. Some guys go every 6 or 7 days at this point in time, and with off days and 6-man rotations and all that. So I'm always going to view things through the aggregate, right? I'm always going to view things through, okay, to your point, and you made this point, and I agree, where are those 32 starts going to come from? Where are those 196 innings or whatever it was going to come from? I mean, as more time goes on, and I don't know this for certain by any stretch of the imagination, but as more time goes on, if you want my cynical viewpoint and outlook on where they stand right now, I really wonder if they ever acquire Corbin Burnes had Kyle Bradish's elbow not started barking in January. That's my cynical, doubting, half-empty kind
and that's
of.
not that's not you being a jerk. That's just being reality.
And I don't know that. Let me be clear. I don't know that. But I'm just saying, as time has gone on and piecing together, they acquired Burnes on February 1st when they reported in mid-February that Bradish had a PRP injection and wasn't going to be ready for the start of the season. Everything at that time was said that Bradish told them at some point in mid to late January that his elbow was bothering him. So Anyway, that's last year. How are you going to go about doing this? Because for me, it's not even about, okay, he signed for 6 years, $210 million. There was deferred money. There's an opt-out after 2 years. I mean, you mentioned it. The Bob Nightingales and John Heymans of the world have already said, and they didn't say specifically the Orioles, but they said that there were offers out there that were better than the offer that Arizona gave Burnes. And Burnes is a Scottsdale resident. His wife just gave birth to twins over the summer. We remember that. He was on paternity leave. By all accounts, and this wasn't new, it wasn't specifically the Diamondbacks, but it was said by a number of credible industry sources and media types that Burnes preferred to be on the West Coast. I mean, that was talked about a lot, multiple times. So if we're to take all of that at face value, and it truly was a case that he valued being closer to home, he valued the tax situation in Arizona compared to other places, Baltimore, wherever, all of that. My question would be, if you weren't going to offer something to really blow them out of the water in terms of besting what he was looking for from the Arizona Diamondbacks, or if it ended up being the San Francisco Giants or whoever, and that's fine. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Then you need to pivot, right? And you look at where they stand right now. Most of the free agent market has been picked clean. There's still Jack Flaherty, which, we saw how that worked 2 years ago. I'm not sure either side is enthusiastic about that possibility. You have 40-something versions of Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. You have some other guys out there that are good arms, guys that would slot somewhere into their rotation, like an Andrew Heaney, for example. But he's certainly not a number one. You're not talking about someone like that. So you look at the free agent market and you say, okay, well, they already signed the Japanese pitcher, Tomoyuki Sagano, who, as I said to you a while back when we talked about it in passing, in a vacuum, I like that move. I think he's got a profile that he could end up being a really good number 4, number 5, back half of the rotation starter, right? And I mean, we saw them do this with Albert Suarez to a different, that was a minor league deal, but it's the same idea. You're off the beaten path here. So I'm fine with that. I think that move is fine in isolation. I'm fine with signing Tyler O'Neill in isolation. But when you look at where they stand right now, and you made the point and you took the words right out of my mouth, they're 3 months away from playing a game that counts. Ozzie Newsome famously, and Eric DaCosta to this day, constantly talk in the offseason when they're asked about, what's going on in free agency, or losing player A or player B, or trading away this guy, or having to release this guy because of the salary cap.
Well, Luke, we don't have to play till September.
Exactly. And there's merit to that. To your point, they acquired Corbin Burnes on February 1st. So I guess where my concern is, and this is where we're looking at things in the aggregate and in the big picture, is if you don't want to spend big money on a free agent starter, fine. Look, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that's not, especially for a team that's not going to have an unlimited payroll, relatively speaking, that's not the best way to go about business. But okay, how are you going to do it? You've already acquired Corbin Burnes, which, hey, for a 1-year rental, it worked great. I don't think Joey Ortiz is going to be a 10-time All-Star. I don't think DL Hall is going to become an All-Star left-handed starter, let alone whether he's even going to be an All-Star caliber closer. So that deal, I still sign off on that.
Oh,
10
they
out of
got
10
their
times.
money's worth out of Burnes.
Exactly. Regardless of signing him or not. No, I'm just talking in terms of it only being 1 year.
You
right?
knew keeping him was going to be $200 million plus.
You knew that was going to be tough, right? I mean,
unless his arm fell off and he stunk.
Well,
right?
sure.
Which is the other part of it.
Look, that's always a possibility with these guys. I mean, everyone's durable until they're not anymore.
Or they're Adley Rutschman and they just stink for a while, and then you have to reevaluate. I mean, $150 million to Rutschman this time last year would have made Steve Martin look like a hero and handing out hats, and he signed the young guy. And
now it's what's going on?
Exactly. I mean, all of these. I've been doing this for 40 years, so I don't want to say something here that's going to be utterly stupid, although I try. I'm going to do a comparison with your Japanese pitcher in a minute, but continue your thought.
So you look at this, and we've seen them go the route of 1-year deals, right? This started with Jordan Lyles a few years ago, and look, that was a good deal. Kyle Gibson, good deal, right? gave them exactly what they bargained for, right? Exactly what they envisioned. Corbin Burnes, they make a trade, albeit a 1-year rental. But you look at how they operate. And again, this isn't about Corbin Burnes for me. This isn't even about a number one starter per se, but it's about how are you going to maintain enough pitching over time if you're not going to spend big money on multi-year contracts, which, hey, again, if that's your philosophy, fine. I can respect that. There are other ways to spend money that will probably have, a better return on your investment, safer investments, all that. So if you're not going to do that, fine. We have talked about this for years now. They do not draft pitchers early, right? They have very much gone, with the exception of Jackson Holliday, they have very much gone the route of, with their earliest picks, draft college hitters. And look, that's worked out well for them, right? And they've even the high schoolers that they've drafted.
That's a Sigma Idell thing about whether you play blackjack or whether you play roulette, right?
Sure.
Blackjack, you can actually win. If you play blackjack, you can't win at roulette.
so you have that. And it's not like they haven't drafted any pitchers. And the last year or two, they've started to invest a little more draft capital in that way, but they're still not drafting first round pitchers, right? Until we see them start doing that, then you look at the draft and say, okay, well, you're not really doing that. So then what do you have to fall off on, or what do you have to fall back on? Well, it's another Corbin Burnes kind of deal. Can they go out there and get Dylan Cease? And could Dylan Cease pitch as well as Corbin Burnes this year? Absolutely. Dylan Cease had a really good year for the Padres this past year, but he's another rental. So, and you're not going to have to give up Jackson Holliday for him, but you're going to have to give up something.
At some point, you're going to have to give somebody $200 million, or you're going to have to play the game.
Or you're just going to deplete your farm system, right? And then
we're going to have to piece it together and figure out how we get 1-year Jack Flaherty's and do it with 35-year-old pitchers.
Well, and that's where I brought his name up to you a couple weeks ago. I look at someone, and this is just one example. I'm sure there are a few other pitchers that you could put into this category. Look at someone like Luis Castillo of the Mariners, right? Just turned 32 years old. He, I believe, is signed through 2027. If you look at the breakdown of his deal, he is owed $24 million next year. He's owed $24 million the following year, and he's owed 24 in 2027. So that takes him through his age 34 season. He does have a vesting option for 2028 that I think has to do with innings pitched or time lost to injuries, whatever it is. Point is,
why the Mariners want to give him up if they got to sign?
Because they can't hit.
Then you go get hitters. They'd sign Santander and go play.
Well, okay, I'm not talking about the strategy of the Seattle Mariners, though, but the Mariners don't spend a lot of money. You know that. I mean, when was the last time the Mariners had a top 5 payroll? Never. So my point is, you can go the Corbin Burnes route again with Dylan Cease, and it might work out really well for 2025, and Dylan Cease could pitch well, and you can have designs on maybe re-signing him, maybe not. Or you can go the route of someone like a Luis Castillo, who, and this would be more in the Zach Eflin mindset, right? I mean, Zach Eflin was acquired with not just the rest of 24 in mind, but 2025 as well. But the point is, with doing this, if you go down the road long enough and understanding that the Orioles aren't picking in the top 5 anymore because they're good, it puts a lot of pressure on your ability to continue to draft and develop and have a pipeline that's robust enough that you're going to be able to continue to make trades, right? So I think a lot of this boils down to, and again, I'm putting aside everything you mentioned about the history of the organization. And that's all true. Let me be clear. That's all true in terms of
the fans have endured that. So when you see the 10,000 empty seats,
I understand that,
but they're asking the fans to fund it, right? So the fans have to believe in it to fund it.
Sure.
I know I do.
Sure. At the same time, Mike Elias would also say, well, we won 101 games without Corbin Burnes the year before. And we won 91 games with losing half of our starting rotation and losing our all-star third baseman over the last 3 months. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. At the same time, fans don't run the front office. They can't. And if someone's offended by that, go to an Ivy League school and get your degree in sports economics and become a general manager. I mean, it's just, but again, going back to the big picture question here, how are you going to proceed to have that kind of a starting rotation that is going to get you over the hump? Because I don't know if it's sustainable to just say you're going to keep trading prospects for pitchers that you have for a year or maybe two, and then they move on. So that's where, and you made a point about going out there and telling people what the plan is. I mean, no teams are going out there and telling you what the plan is, right? I mean, because they're going to say that that puts them at a competitive disadvantage. However, actions speak louder than words. And when you look at where they are right now in the offseason, Corbin Burnes or not, Anthony Santander or not, Tyler O'Neill or not, Sagano, go down the list of guys that they have signed. Yeah, there's no one who could say right now that they're better right now than they were at the end of last year. And
But
that's
this
just
is
the
a
truth.
chance for them to communicate under new ownership in a different way with the fan base. That
I mean,
includes
I
Elias at the top of this because Elias
I
is the
just don't know
face of
what
it all.
what team does that though, Nestor. Like
Okay.
I hear what you're saying, and don't get me wrong. Are there ways that they could communicate better? Absolutely, but I mean, Eric
They
DeCosta
don't even
doesn't.
take questions from me. So like that, let's start with just the fact that like, are my questions dirtier than your questions? Are they more Hispanic? Are they more right wing, left wing? What's wrong with my questions? What's wrong with questions in general? What's wrong with front facing on all of this? For Katie Griggs and Rubenstein, I just really believed, and call me Pollyanna, and I've had some other serious people that I know behind the scenes that believe this as well. So I
Mhm.
wasn't the only one. I didn't think we were really going back to local street ownership and where David Modell was versus what Sasha, whatever Sashi Brown is,
Yeah.
whoever he is, standing out in front of the locker room like he's a former tight end. Um, that's all I see with the leadership. And unfortunately, the Baltimore Sun's going out of business. I had the guy from the Banner. Banner has 8 sports writers in their whole department. So like
Mhm.
there's not a you're in the locker room, you know who's there. I mean, like that's the football locker room. You're in the baseball locker room too, and that is way more sort of sanitized and homogenized on the baseball side, especially with 162 games every single day. There were 10,000 empty seats at the playoff game. Somebody should address that, and somebody should say, who are the 10,000 people that are going to be there next year, and how do we get them there, and how do we make this better, not run away from it, not have Friday afternoon press conferences when you're going to move the stands back, not go through a holiday season without having a holiday event of some kind, and signing the Japanese pitcher, but like there's no presence to it. And you've already said you think he's a fourth or fifth starter. I'm going to get to the baseball side of that. But I'm
Mhm.
just trying to, you're like the actions speak loud. Dude, they had an empty stadium. They got their ass kicked. They all ran away, and they've been running for 90 days now. It's almost next year. Like by the time you and I get together, it'll be another year. So since October 3rd, 4th, 5th, whenever they got eliminated, whatever that day was, there hadn't been much. And that's not good. That's not good business. That's not good local business. That's not good. We're something new and fresh and different. And blah, blah, blah. Maroon came out and did an hour with me. I haven't done an hour with Cal. I haven't done an hour with anybody. And if they want to live in the Ryan Ripken sphere and they want to live in whatever, I mean, 98 Rock doesn't care about them. BAL, I mean, they're doing all football. We're all
Mhm.
purpled up. 105.7's all purpled up, except when Lock and Four is trying to shoot bullets at Mike Elias because I'm wearing an orange shirt. I had to go to the back of my closet. It's only been 90 days, but like, do they still play? And what are their odds next year? And who are their pitchers? And what's up with the Rutschman kid? And when's spring training? And where do you train? Oh, Sarasota. Should we go down there? Are the games on? What's going on with Masson? Oh, I hear Greg Bader's running it. I'm sure he'll be real quick to get out in front of it. I mean, like, the football team is trying to win the Super Bowl. So much so that they played on Christmas, which I didn't approve of, but that's neither here nor there. And they're going to play Saturday afternoon and told everybody a minute ago that they're playing Saturday instead of Sunday, almost like the baseball people. I'm just trying to get to the point where I'm going to get excited and want Oriole earrings under the tree this week, or whether I'm going to want to give them the Birdland thing that Robbie Leonard came on my air and talked about 2 weeks ago, who gives him
Mhm.
$1,200 and figures out what lawyer buddies he's going to take to the games, and he gets the 25% off the beer, but not anymore. And they've taken this away and that. All I hear from fans, and I'm not one of them apparently, because I'm not a real fan, because ask anybody on Facebook. All I hear from the real fans, and to some degree they're right. The real fans are the ones that pull the credit card out and buy things, book trips, make plans, opening day, buy Birdland this, are really vested in this. I stand in front of Mike Elias and these people, or stand outside to ask questions for them because they don't really have answers. And when I see the internet and the social media and the fighting, the infighting amongst the fan base, which we're a part of, and Jason Lockenfora likes to, is throwing the hand grenades at the team that has been in the playoffs the last 2 years. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm not anti Mike Elias or anti
Mm.
Sigma. I'm not anti David Rubenstein. I'm not anti Chris Ullman. I'm certainly not anti Katie Griggs. I haven't met her, but I'm going to be real anti them when they deny me a press credential and act like my questions don't matter when they have 10,000 empty seats in the upper deck. And everybody on a holiday weekend is scattered on this Corbin Burnes thing. And I don't think they've communicated well. And if they want to communicate through John Heyman and Bob Nightingale's little tweets that we tried real hard, that's the Angelos way, dude. Do it differently. Just do it differently. I don't even know what that means. Show me somebody different running it, even when you are disappointed that you didn't retain your number one starter at any cost because his family wanted to be there. And I'll buy all of that. But the instant bourgeois I call on that is they all live in Arizona. They would all play for the Diamondbacks or for the Padres or for not the Dodgers. Nobody lives in LA because LA sucks. You live in Phoenix, you play in LA. Like I travel, I know these things. So like if it's about getting guys out of Phoenix, I mean, Damon Buford went out there, he never left. I mean, all those guys go out there, the Awatuki, and I'm telling you, man, if I owned the baseball team, we train in Scottsdale. I'm much more of a cactus guy than a spring training guy because I've been out there and I've experienced it. So I am not shocked that a guy who's already got 80 million in the bank and just took on another 210 million and it's just going to say like, I can see the stadium from where I live. It's 12 miles away. Got a chance to win. I mean, the Orioles thing, it's cold there. So he played Milwaukee. So like I get that you couldn't marry that girl. I could give you a list of 100 girls I couldn't marry, when I was young too. I'd like to, just couldn't. And that's good. That's okay. So keep communicating with your fan base. Go on the radio. Be accessible. Be fun. Be off season. Encourage people to get involved. Tell them about the Birdland membership. Tell them what discounts they can have. Like, sell it. Sell it. You have empty seats. Nobody believes in you. Nobody believes in the Orioles. Nobody. Nobody. Why would they believe in the Orioles? Give me a reason to believe. It sounds like a Bret Michaels song. Give me something to believe in. So yeah, give me something to believe in. And that's what I see amongst the haters like me. How could I dare be a hater when all they've ever done is lie, hide, cheapskate, bourgeois, all the way through. It's what they're known for. They're not known for 101 wins. They're known for not scoring runs in the playoffs. And now they're not known for signing Manny Machado or Corbin Burnes, and they can't get Henderson done. And they just all of the awfulness of Angelos gets resurrected when they lose out on a $210 million pitcher that maybe they never had a chance to get. But again, this is a chance for them to show me and everyone who follows me and everyone who listens to me and you or anybody that listens to Jason Lockenfora or listens to Brett Hollander that they're doing things differently other than making commercials with the guy that looks like Steve Martin. Show me you're doing things differently and give me a reason to believe in what you're doing, that there is a plan, it will work, and where the strategy of your payroll is, Mr. Rubenstein, that's the story. That's the whole story. Because if you're asking us to fund it, little small market, I'm afraid of going downtown, and like if that's, then fine. Then we're going to play with a $110 million payroll forever, and we're just not going to have good toys. And then people like me are not going to believe in you to begin with because you're not going to really, you're going to be Milwaukee. You're going to be like, okay, but you're not going to really be serious. And at that point, I'll go to the beach in the summer. I mean, or there'll just be 10,000 empty seats in the upper deck until you take the 600 million we've given you and erase them and turn it into a bar. So it doesn't look like 10,000 empty seats, and they'll just announce the crowd at 32,000. Like I'm trying to grow it, not shrink it, Luke. And I'm not being a dick. They haven't won in your lifetime. So when they do things like this and they continue to box people like me out, and then as a fan, as a journalist, I'm looking for information, and all I get's whiffs of we tried really hard because Bob Nightingale said, and I like Bob and I like John Heyman. John Heyman and I work together, Sporting News. I mean, these are all people I know well. So like, I'm not anti all of that, but I at some point face your customers in this city on December 30th and January 3rd and January 10th, and continue to give them something to believe in that, quite frankly, the football team gives us something to believe in. And we could beat the football team up and Lamar and Derrick Henry or whatever. The football team, there's never a night we go to bed not thinking that they're going to win the division or that they can be the team they're going to be next week, which is hosting a playoff game. It's still not good enough because they didn't win 15 and they're not at home, and they probably won't win the Super Bowl. Probably won't, right now. But we believe in the football team winning. I don't know about that with the baseball team. I don't know we have any level of confidence, especially because of the big bad Yankees and how imbalanced and imperfect their charter is to run baseball. They just need to be better than this. I mean, that's all. I'll continue to challenge them the same way, and I really offended the Angelos family by saying, just be better. Can't you people be better? Can't you people be upfront and honest and out in front of this 365 days a year, so that when the Burnes thing happens, you've positioned yourself and the situation to be better than whatever the food fight was over the weekend. And your voice isn't so great, so I'm trying to carry you, but you carry yourself now. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have
I
a
mean, look, you're still way more caught up in the talking about it part. Show me. Go get a pitcher. But because here's the thing, everything you just said, and look, there's plenty of merit to what you just said. I'm not sitting here saying I 100% disagree because I don't. But you can talk about what you want to do and talk about what you want to do, but if you don't go do it, all anyone's saying is you guys are just you're all talk and no action. I mean, no one wants to hear a press conference on why you missed out on Corbin Burnes. People want to hear, what are you going to do? Go do it. Go do it. And there, no one says, oh, we're going to go trade for Dylan Cease. First of all, you're not allowed to say that. And second of all, why would you say that? Because you're going to put strategically, you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. So I hear everything you're saying.
What's a Dylan Cease trade look like to you?
I don't know. Not far off from what the Corbin Burnes trade was. I mean, Joey Ortiz wasn't a top 25 prospect in baseball. I mean, DL Hall at that point was already starting to fall out of the top 100 prospect conversation.